All right. Welcome to another video of the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. Um, don't have my webcam on. It is late and uh, kind of tired. I don't want to set up my green screen in the back. Yeah, my bedroom is, got a lot of stuff in there. And this is an important video. Okay. Again, um, I haven't been doing this sort of video on my TI channel. Just been pretty busy. Plus, I've been doing a lot more Facebook videos, but my Facebook videos is not the my regular TI videos. I discuss topic affecting black people, black and European people, and the system of white racism, right? And institutionalized white racism. But I was just here. I think I was playing some Fortnite. Again, they love to target me, love to send me all these subliminal message. Particularly recently, every time the word "buy," if I read the word "buy," B-Y, the word "buy" is being said. It's either call honking or sirens, and it could be one or two things because normally they send me all sorts of subliminal message and through silent sound. So for example, when I go by Pam, sometimes I get fixated on people on bicycles and I'm staring at the bicycle wheel, right? Bicycle, because a lot of stuff has to do with a lot of sexual innuendos too. So like bisexual, in terms of, you know, my kid's mother Pam and stuff like that, right? Which again, like I said, I don't care. That's her business. Okay. Though I may still care for her, love her, but that's her business, and I'm grounded in who I am as a person. I know who I am. Okay. They've tried the homosexual thing with me. It didn't work. I'm not homosexual. Um, they've tried the transsexual. I mean, in terms of, sending transsexual people my way. No, that didn't work. All sorts of stuff. Gay dudes in cabs, you know, yelling out the window, "Hey, are you gay?" That kind of thing. No, didn't work. Okay. Again, also the word window, as I say, window was a car honking. Um, Today wasn't too bad. A couple of with the police targeting in home surveillance. They're very very subtle with their targeting, but it was mostly a lot of car honking. Okay, and again, um, understand how they try to play good cop, or good guy, bad guy, what have you. But just remember they're two sides of the same coin. Okay, don't forget that. All right. Uh, it is to. I just heard a knock on the floor upstairs. Um, so yeah, so once you figure it out, right? Once you figure it out, you begin to understand that the voices they put in your head, the commands, the suggestions through the silent sounds transmission. Once and you have to basically remove yourself from people, okay? And they will look at that as being like, oh, he's reacting in a way that he is self isolating or she is self isolating. And again, they'll try to make it look as that's being suspicious. But anybody who's being attacked with these weapons, who's been manipulated by these weapons, this is why they try to use money as a factor, right? To get you to allow them to manipulate you, to experiment on you. Okay. So this is why, like I said, they use money. So there are TIs out there who have bought into the experimentation because it allows them to keep their job as long as they remain silent about it. And it's something that they've tried with me, but I wouldn't become silent. So, I got fired, right? Um, because again, when you have to figure out what's going on, and particularly when you are ignorant to technologies that can, in fact, manipulate and influence your mind, your thought, your thinking pattern, manipulate you in such a way, and couple that with um, being drugged, being uh, set up. So, you spend a lot of time reflecting on the past in terms of even before you was a target, like what happened, you know, and like for me, I always reference my twin brother who was a target. He was targeted in the mid 90s. And I think, we both work for these companies in the graphic arts industry. And, he was doing a little thing on the side with these two young black women, magazine stuff, and I used to help out doing scanning, retouching, color correction, that sort of thing, printing proofs and stuff like that, right? And everything. The first issue, you know, the first issue, which is the first magazine issue, on screen files, print, made sure everything was good, make sure that the DPI of the film was good, it shouldn't have any problem, you know and then you know they the first proof came out beautiful. It was like, wow. So they went ahead and you know send everything to the printer. Okay, after approving all the changes, I did whatever changes need to be done, new film. Then, when it went to mass production of the magazine, the first issue, uh, the prints came out horrible. It wasn't what the initial first proof looked like. Okay? So these young women, my brother and I, money, time spent doing these things, only to have it look like crap. Okay? And, again, when you're young, you have no idea about white racism and what it truly is and how they manipulate, how they sabotage. Um, it didn't really dawn, until certain things happened to my brother. And, again, then he became, then they were overtly targeting him because I believe, they were being covertly targeted. And coincidentally, one of these young women actually, that we were working with at the time, she died of cancer. Okay. So, you know, it's, when you start to, again, I do a lot of research, a lot of research. Okay. And I'm going to share, again, more information with you guys. But when I think back at certain things, like going to the doctors, giving you um, wrong diagnosis, these things we don't think about because again, when the vast majority of us, when we're young, when we were younger, we're totally ignorant, right, to the realities around us, in the light, in the shadows, up, down, doesn't matter. We were totally ignorant. Okay. And so, hence my brother became targeted. Used to come to my job one night, really distraught. I didn't understand what's going on. I knew strange things were also happening with me. Like for example, there was a young lady I was seeing, and I remember like when every time we walked down the street, we would always get these smiles from these white police officers. Always get these smiles, and these are things I think about. Another young lady who I went to high school with, I was seeing for a little bit. She came to my apartment one day with tears in her eyes, literally looking at me all strange. And again, I didn't quite understand. And I kept asking her, "Hey, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" And she kept telling me, "Yeah, everything is fine." So I said, "Everything can be fine because you got your you have like your eyes are swelling up with water. What's going on?" But she wouldn't tell me. Again, I didn't think about it. Ignorant. Again, you don't see things, right? You have tunnel vision, right? And so things happen when I think about certain things, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. But you know, it is what it is. Currently, as TIs, we're in the same situation, maybe a little different here and there, but we're all victim of covert psychological operation as well as non-consensual human experimentation. Okay? And so this is what I choose to focus on. And this is what they don't want me to talk about. And every time I talk about it, they will use the technology on me, on the people around me, on my kids, on here to target me. Okay? And like I said, it was so bad Friday, not Friday, sorry, Saturday, that I was like, let me leave because I literally felt this rush of anger. And I was like, you know what? It's time for me to go, you know? And this is what I used to do in the past, but something that she wouldn't understand, but I just needed to go home and I would come back the next day. I'll be there like at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6:30, taking my daughter to the babysitter, taking Ethan to school, but she just didn't understand it. She told me like, oh, I felt like, she was like, oh, I felt like you was abandoning us. I'm like, how? How? I was back the next day. But again, that was just her excuse, because again, she was doing what she was doing. Okay. And she was trying to justify it. Okay. Despite the fact that I told her that from the very beginning that I was a target individual. And then I had stopped talking to her because the very first time we went out, she started targeting me and I stopped. I didn't call her for like a month. And then I spoke to my sister and she was like, Nigel, but again, when your family is ignorant to these things also, they don't know. So you can't really blame them. We know through the technologies now that they can basically co-opt a person's mind. So when you talk to your family, particularly early on when your targeting goes overt and they're telling you things, it is not them. It is their minds being hacked to tell you wrong information and to give you wrong suggestions. Okay? Because you see, it is easier for them to manipulate the people around you, to deceive you, to give you wrong information, and then you act upon that wrong information. So then they can be like, you know what? Hey, we didn't do anything, right? But again, it's indirect manipulation. Okay, I understand that. Also, right? Uh, like my son, when he was born, my second son, Ethan, when he was born, I wasn't there for the birth because I was a little upset because I had told her, I said, listen, I'm target, I'm a TI, and such, I'm not ready to have another child. And I said, I want it to be different, want to get the whole marriage things. But again, like most European women, they only hear what they want to hear and they only want what they want. It doesn't matter what you want, because I told her about, trying to do my business and stuff like that. And again, it goes through one ear and out the other. But again, I don't blame her and I don't blame them because again, we're all being programmed. We're all being manipulated. Okay. So understanding that, yeah, I may get a little upset because the technology that's being used and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to protect yourself from these technologies. Okay. No way. All right. So even though as much as I know about it, as much as I understand, it still affects you. Because again, if they're hitting your emotional state, what can you do? That's why, again, where they understand that you're either going to exhibit the fight or flight phenomena. Okay. And I'll tell TIs all the time. Okay, it's better to exhibit the flight, meaning that remove yourself from that situation because it might get volatile. Go somewhere, but make sure that you have a clear destination, one that you don't think in your mind you're being manipulated to go to. Okay? But again, that's a very hard thing, right? So, anyhow, so I am going to share information from two books. One is called Controlling the Human Mind by Dr. Nick Begich, and the other one is called Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control by Dr. John Hall. But I'm also going to play a video with Dr. Nick Begich on YouTube. Again, let me put a disclaimer that I don't own the rights to this video. This is just for commentary and explanation in terms of technology as according to the Fair Use Act of 1968, sorry, 1978 and 1976, something like that. Anyhow, we'll see if YouTube flagged my video, okay? If it does, then I guess they'll probably just mute the sound, or I'll edit the video. You know, or what I'll do, I'll just, let me see if I can use the subtitles. Okay. All right. So maybe that will work. Okay. All right. Here we go.
Maybe we can use electromagnetic fields to manipulate what's going on in the brain. In 1969, there was a book published called Towards a Psycho-Civilized Society, and this was put together by Jose Delgado, and he had his doctorate in electrophysiology from the University of Madrid from 1950. He came over to Yale University in the mid-60s and began mapping the human brain, stimulating the human brain in primates and bulls and animals, all different kinds of animals.
Okay. All right, so as he just said, they begin mapping the human brain, right, in the 1960s. So when they talk about the mapping of the human brain today as if it is something that they've just completed, that's a lie. Okay? That is a lie. The U.S. government, its security agencies, the CIA, the military, particularly DARPA, had already mapped the human brain possibly 2 decades earlier. And I say 2 decades earlier, maybe even more, 2 to 3 decades earlier, because again, early on during my targeting, my experience, from my emotions, from my thought pattern to what was happening outside, okay? And again, my overt targeting began in 2002, I believe, right? 2002. That's my overt, okay? Not the covert stuff. The covert stuff was happening years before, but I had no idea, okay? So at that point, they had already mapped out the human brain.
Stimulating different parts of the brain to see what parts were responsible for what kinds of actions or cognitive functions and so on. So what he was doing in those days, in the 60s, was he was implanting microcircuits, and then, or not microcircuits, circuits, and stimulating them with RF, radio frequency energy. So one of the illustrations or photographs shows a charging bull coming at him, and he throws the switch and the bull stops right in front of him. Well, by the mid-80s, he figured out you didn't need any implanted technologies. All you needed to know was how to modulate the right frequency. And the energy density, the concentration of energy, was 1/50th of what the Earth naturally produces. Very small energy in the RF range, radio frequency ranges. Now, compare that to what's around us right at the moment. At the moment, there's 200 million times more radio frequency and energy around us in any urban area than there is naturally produced by the Earth. So a huge amount, and out of all that background noise, what he found is by hitting a precise window frequency with very low energy concentrations, you would pick that signal out because it was coherent, not like nature all over the map. It was a coherent rhythmic signal in a very precise frequency. The brain would pick it out, and he could change behavior from lethargic to highly active, back and forth, like switching on and off a light switch.
Let me ask a question right here. Is that with a subject that was in, say, a short distance of whatever he was utilizing to affect this particular pulse, or is this at large? Could he do this on, say, larger groups?
You could do it on an individual basis or a very large basis. In fact, if you go back to the work of J.F. Gordon MacDonald, he was a geophysicist at UCLA, and he was a science advisor to Lyndon Johnson. He wrote a chapter in a book called Unless Peace Comes, and the chapter was called How to Wreck Your Environment. But within that chapter was a section that said, if we could ever learn how to electronically stroke the ionosphere, this layer that begins about 30 miles above the Earth's surface that's electrically charged, if we could ever figure out how to electronically stroke it, he said, to get it to send a signal back to the Earth, we could affect the behavior of people over huge geographic areas on a hemispheric basis. And it wouldn't affect everyone, it would affect 70 or 80% of the population is what they more or less figured.
Okay, so you guys hear what he just said, right? That basically, right, if they send a signal up to the ionosphere will bounce that signal back onto a large area, which will affect 70 or 80% of that population, meaning that they can change the behavior, the thought pattern of human beings, right, up to 70 to 80% of the populated area. Okay? Now, what happened if in every state, city, town, they have a device? Okay, and I think in the Russian declassified documents, they talk about biogenerators. Okay, so these things can be placed all over the place. Also, cell phone towers. Okay, remember your cell phone operates on radio frequency. Okay, send a receiver. Just also cable, in terms of cable television. I talked about how before that I had to call my cable company. You know, it was like a regular thing. And when they would send a technician out, you know, and I was asking what's going on, and he was like, well, you know, we just found another signal going through your cable box, your cable line, and, you know, we just had to, you know, stop the signal. Okay. And I talk about it. I used to wake up in the night, you know, my cable box used to automatically turn on or turn off. The channel used to change by themselves. Okay, because again, they were manipulating the cable box. Okay. So understanding these things, like I said, just based off of my experience, my observation, you know, what I've researched and what I've read. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about. Now they may, again, because they have the authority and the power to label you, and, you know, using psychiatric labeling and such. And that's one of the biggest, and as soon as I say psychiatric labeling, you hear the police siren going off. Well, you guys not going to hear it because I have noise suppression on. But the siren goes, I think it's there. Here, hold on a sec. All right, so that's what I hear. But it's in very low volume. Okay, it's a very low volume. Okay, and they've been very subtle. And when I said low volume, okay, call honked. All right, again at a low volume. So I think at this point they understand that I figured out that they're two sides of the same coin. Okay, and how do you know this? Because when you look at any non-consensual human experimentation that has taken place within the United States, okay, law enforcement has always been used as a tool, right? Either in the use of discrediting the victims, incarcerating them, institutionalizing them, are basically just when the victim go to a precinct to complain, to basically engage in plausible deniability and tell the victims that they need to see a psychiatrist. Okay? Because it happened to me. All right? So now, what? They don't, I guess they figure since they have locked me out of trying to get therapy for the past, what, going on 2 years now? Okay? Because again, they don't want you to have a record. They don't want you to have professional documentation of what it is that you are saying is being done to you. So this is why, I've had psychiatrists tell me, well, I don't think we're going to be a good fit. Good luck. You know what I'm saying? But, this is how they get away with stuff. Okay? This is how they get away with stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of us and a lot of others are being manipulated for control. Okay? And in order to prevent us from coming forward and exposing, what do you think they would do? I have done. Okay? Given their history, right? What did you think they did and are doing? So we have to think with a broader mindset, a broader awareness. Okay? And this is why they don't want us to gather any sort of information, have any sort of knowledge. Okay? This is why they have infiltrated the TI community. And so you see a lot of TIs are pushing this religious, indoctrinated BS, not understanding that that is also part of the mind control program, right? The discrediting program, okay? The distraction program to keep you not focused, right? So let me give you an example. When they do this to you and they've been exposed, they will try to reverse or to deprogram your mind. But that is an impossible task. And I say impossible because once an individual has gone through what we as TI has gone through, okay? Let's say they were to stop tomorrow. We are so traumatized that it still would be difficult for us to have a normal life, or what would be considered a normal life. Okay? So let's say, for example, they stop targeting me. And let's say, I still wouldn't date, for one, because, my disability, and I can't really, I don't have the money to be taking women on dates, that sort of thing. Plus, most women are not going to date a man, or a man would date a woman if she's on disability. Shit, a man would date a woman if she have mental issues, if he consider her pretty enough, if he sees that she has a nice body, a man will deal with that. Women, on the other hand, they will tell you, oh, you was diagnosed with a mental illness? No, thank you. Even if you were a very handsome man, okay, you will have a tougher time. Also because, again, if you're on disability, they don't give you that much. It is barely enough for you to survive on. Okay. And also, as people who have gone through this type of horrific, traumatic experience, one of the things we developed to try to keep our minds off of this stuff, and it was hard, we take up hobbies, right? We take up hobbies. Okay. I like building computers. Okay. And again, I build it for my kids, for myself, and it would be nice to say, well, maybe I can start a small business building and selling computers. But again, that's not going to happen because they're not going to allow it. As long as I continue to expose what it is that they have done and what they continue to do, okay? And again, because, it's one of my purpose. And, once I made the decision that this is going to be one of my purpose, and I said the word one, you hear the car honking. Usually, I don't know why, it's just one. Anyhow, they also do it with certain numbers also, but one seems to be the most frequent number, right? When it's being said or when I read the number, I will hear either mostly car honking though. Sometimes police sirens, okay? So, okay, what I was saying. So I said, you got to, as TIs, what they've done, sometimes it's kind of hard to focus and, this is why I don't go into a lot of other belief, Illuminati, all this stuff. I try to stay focused and just talk about what I talk about. Okay. And as time goes by, and let's say I gather enough information, okay, that's credible, then I'll include it. But, as in the beginning, as TIs, we're like all over the place. We're unfocused, we're confused, because this is what the technology does to us. And even now, we're still confused. Sometimes I am confused, but I realize and understand why I'm confused. Okay. And when I accept that, it doesn't bother me. Okay. I just look at it and say to myself, you know what? You're being hit with this technology. So, don't even dwell on it and don't get frustrated, because you have to come to a point where you have to, because nobody's going to be sympathetic with you, to be honest with you. Okay. I have not met anybody, well, I shouldn't say that, but personally on face to face that other than TIs, who are sympathetic to what we go through as TIs. Okay. And they've been conditioned that way. They've been manipulated that way. And so you have to understand that. So anyway, I'm kind of, you see, again, losing track of what it is that I was talking about here. Shoot. And I get, right. So, 80% of the population. Okay. So imagine, again, this is why I say we as TIs, if you're experiencing gang stalking, the synchronized movement, your microchip, right? They've implanted you. Okay. Now, your perps out there, again, this is what the technology does. It can control them to do certain things. Okay. And particularly also, a lot of this stuff also now is based off of your DNA. So if they have a database with everybody's DNA, okay, just as we know, there's what is called brain fingerprinting, and where they have identified everyone consciousness, meaning that who you are, your conscious self in your mind, it's kind of like fingerprint. It's like the future, right? So we all have our own unique fingerprint. It's very rare that two people have the same fingerprint. Well, they are now able to identify you through your consciousness. Okay, as I said, that police siren just went off. Okay, that's what I heard. So I'm not doing that to target TIs, but I need to explain exactly what is being done, because I want people to learn and know what's going on. Okay, all right. So let me continue the video.
But this was a technology that didn't exist in 1969. In the early 70s, Zbigniew Brzezinski referenced J.F. Gordon's work and said, this is a technology that will likely emerge. What has happened with a project that I wrote a book on some time ago, Angels Don't Play This Harp, about the HARP project, it was designed to do many things. as a side effect or a deliberate effect, this can happen. I mean, the fact is they generate the right kind of signal in the right range to override brain function. And that you can kind of look at the brain in sort of this way in terms of predominant brain activity. 1 to 4 hertz or pulses or vibrations per second. This is where you are in your deepest, deepest states of sleep. The next range, approximately 4 to 7 hertz. This is the theta range, the theta range. This is where you are between awake and asleep, when you're consciously.
And when he says 4 to 7 range, okay,
aware of your dreams. This is where little kids are between 3 and 6 years old, why they have trouble distinguishing reality from imagination, because of the way the brain works at that time. A little bit further up you have the alpha range, 7 to say 11, 12 hertz, in that range. This is where you are when you're in the zone, when you're doing your art, your reading, your research, when you're really focused. That's where you want to be. And then above that is the beta ranges, where people should be when we're actively having this kind of a dialogue. And then high beta is where you are in your agitated states. If you think about affecting the brain by analogy, similarly to dialing a radio station. When you dial through the radio station, most of the energy is just static. You're static between the stations. When you get on station, you get resonance, harmony between the transmitter and receiver, and you get a nice clear signal. The same is true in the human body and the human brain.
Okay, so again, transmitter receiver. So we know within the brain there are neurons, right? And each neuron in the brain is attached to a specific function of the brain: sight, smell, taste, touch, all your emotional senses, all your physical senses, your internal organs, how things function, your pain sensors. So if they are able to replicate these frequency signals, electrical signals that is released by these neurons. So when we touch something, we feel the smoothness, the roughness, right, is each identified to a specific neuron that fires off within the brain. So, like I said, as for us TIs, okay, if you're experiencing, synchronization, sleep awaken, sleep deprivation, because of your brain no longer produce enough melatonin to regulate sleep, you're going to be up all night, like how I used to be at times, most of the times. Okay. And so again, when you understand these things, you realize that what is being done to you and the effect that it has. And this is why, like I said, I document everything, practically almost everything, whether it be what's going on between me and the kid's mom, what's going on at my kid's school, when I leave, when I go and come, just to show people what's going on. And listen, I know they shadow ban my channels. Okay, my channel. I did a Facebook video earlier. Again, no one even responded to the video, even though I tagged a couple of people on the video. But what can you do, right? And because, like I said, this stuff is hard to prove, and they're very manipulative, right? So what can a person like myself do except to expose it? Okay? Because again, when you don't have the resources, when they try to take away your resources to fight back, there's a reason why they take away your resources, particularly your financial resources. There's a reason why, because you're not able to fight back in a way in which will where you can give your point of view or your you can defend yourself in a proper manner, because they don't want that. It's about railroading victims of non-consensual human experimentation programs. Okay, that's what it is. All right, and so they have to control you. Okay, so when they damage your body, they damage your brain, psychologically, neurologically, physically, damage your body physically, biologically, chemically, and now you have to depend on the government, the same government that experiments on you, in order to have some sort of financial means in order for you to buy clothes, buy food, pay your rent, pay your bills. Okay? And this is why I always talk about how, my experience in this program and what they've done to me, I started thinking beyond myself and realizing that this is exactly what was being done to Black people. Okay? The economic control, the psychological manipulation, the dysfunctional conditioning. And this is why that, like I said, when I start to realize how this stuff had affected me negatively, and I started to become conscious and start to change certain behaviors, they didn't like that. They wanted me to act negative and promising me money. So again, how they attach money to these things. Oh, don't talk about it. We'll give you money. Every single day, man. Every single day, they send me these transmission about, oh, we're going to give you this amount, that amount. I do a video. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to stop your disability, or we're going to decrease your disability. Again, it's all to manipulate and to control you into silence. Okay?
Whether you look at it at an elemental level, the elements that compose the body, or you take it all the way up to the organs of the body, you can create modulations, oscillations that will override the brain's natural rhythms. The brain will entrain or lock onto that external signal and begin to mirror it.
By putting this coherent signal in.
Right. Coherent, meaning rhythmic,
Right.
not random.
Right.
And so it's not so much the amount of energy, it's the way the energy is manipulated.
Okay. So I'm going to pause this video and let's go to the books. Let me see here. Okay, so, oops. Oh. Well, I didn't show you guys the video, which is probably fine. It's probably okay. You guys heard the audio. And let me do this. Okay, so this is the video. You guys can go on YouTube, look it up. All right. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe YouTube won't flag my video now. Okay, it's just the audio. So anyhow, let's go to here. So this is the book written by Dr. Nick Begich, the one that you guys just saw on YouTube. All right, and his book is called Controlling the Human Mind, Technologies of Political Control or Tools for Peak Performance. I'm just going to read a few paragraphs, okay? And let me see, let's see. Okay. Controlling the Human Mind on the way to 1984. Okay? I've been writing about technology areas since 1994, when Nexus magazine published my first article on HOP, a huge array of radio frequency broadcasting antennas operated by the Navy and Air Force here in Alaska. They were aspects of that project that were very disconcerting. including the creation of extremely low frequency ELF pulses of energy that are known to interact with humans and animals. Moreover, the device could be manipulated in such a manner as to impact every vital organ of the human body if operated by a skilled person with the intent to do so, or as a side effect of other military uses for the HARP technology. In the book co-authored by Janine Manning, Angels Don't Play This HARP, we discuss in depth the HARP project with all of its implications, including the issue of emotional and mind control. And you see, this is why what happened Friday when they hacked into the consciousness of the kids and Pam. And like I said, I was sitting on the couch. Okay. Pam came into the living room, started doing the palm fixation drill in front of me, smiling, Then I looked over at my son, and he puts his finger over his mouth as to tell me to hush, right? And then my daughter, okay, as Pam left, my daughter came, stand up in front of the television again, start doing the palm fixation drill. So I said to her, "Hey, what are you doing? Go and sit down." Okay, because at that point I got really angry. Not angry at them, but angry that they were being controlled. Their mind was being controlled. And I said to myself, you know what? It's time for me to go. Okay. And so, and like I said, I just got really angry, and I was like, you know what? It's best that I leave, right? So, just to give you guys an example, right? So the idea of controlling the human mind goes back before the HARP research. There was a lot happening in the 1970s and 80s in the field of brain research. The ideas of enhancing learning, curing brain dysfunction, affecting emotions, and by controlling the human brain, perhaps impacting the entire body. Now, when I say curing brain dysfunction, again with the car honk. Now, here's the thing, right? When you look at, how is it that they're going to conduct non-consensual experimentation out in the public, right? Not in the prisons, not in the mental institutions, but out in the public. How can they get away with it? Okay. And one of the things that they will do is use these technologies to condition people in negative ways. Okay. And in hopes that you might make a mistake, or they can set you up in some way. Okay, because they have the resources, the ability to do this. And then try to manipulate you into silence. And by villainizing you and getting the public to go along with what it is that they're doing. And this is why, later on in my targeted, they started with this public safety message, national security message. When these people are the biggest national security risk and safety risk in America, what they're doing to us and to the public in their minds is not a safety risk, right? Because if they can control the public and manipulate them, brainwash them into having a high level of this patriotic feeling, thinking, doesn't matter what color you are. Okay, like I said, this is why the military got into advertising in sports, to where they'll use the American flag, okay, as a coercive means to instill through psychological and through the technology when watching television, sports program, right? That's like I said, that's why if you watch sports programs, you will see how they will zoom in on the flag on the player's jersey. They will frame the shots in a certain way. Like in football, in the back of the helmet, the American flag. So what they would do, they will do a tight shot of the back of the helmets, particularly when players are in a huddle. And so it's a very convenient way to put the flag, right? And started to become aware of this because when I started watching sports while being a target, while, recognizing a lot of the overt harassment and also the feeling of, okay, let me go back a little. So before I started to recognize the overt targeting, a lot of times before this, right? So we're talking about from like maybe 1998 on up. Like I started to experience these like blank stares, and I never really thought about it, right? And people used to be like, "Yo, you okay?" you know, because I was just had like a blank stare, like I was zoned out. Okay, and this used to happen a lot. So when he talks about, the frequency modulation in tune with your brain, in tune with the signal, the modulated signal, that's one of the effects. Because a lot of times you kind of lose track of time. So you might be staring at something, you thinking it's a few seconds, and next thing you know, 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by. So again, you got to be aware of these things. Okay. And like I said, the best way for you to begin to understand what was done to you, the effect that it has on you, was to observe your own behavior, your own way of thinking, as well as the behaviors of others around you. And like I said, once you start experiencing synchronization, then you know, that, you're being manipulated by these technologies. Okay. All right. So where was I? Okay. Uh, so the idea of enhancing learning, curing brain function, affecting emotions, and by controlling the human brain, perhaps impacting the entire body, were the subjects of numerous press reports and academic studies. I was researching these things throughout the 1980s in conjunction with my varied interests at that time. The idea of influencing human events by direct control. Okay, let me just want to. I got to be careful because again, I don't want them to flag my video and give it a copyright strike, because this is what they'll do. Okay, they will certainly do this. So I need to at least let me put that there. Okay, so I'll continue reading. Okay. Shoot. Okay, I just press. Here we go. All right, is this it? No. Okay. I'm just trying to find where I was. Okay. The idea of influencing human events by direct control of the process that control their bodies and brains of people is the subject of this book, which resulted. Controlling the human mind grew out of two very strong interest areas on the part of the author. Now, I said the word two, and again, they were with the car honking. Okay. So, controlling the human mind grew out of two very strong interest areas on the part of the author: enhancing human performance on one hand, and the potential misuse of these technologies on the other. The ability to enhance human performance and increase human capacity is quickly becoming a necessity in an increasingly complex world. People are gaining in knowledge and new science seemingly without end. Today, technology is advancing so fast that what was previously impossible is now possible. Technology, from the invention of the wheel to where we are today, is doubling every 9 to 10 months. And we see this in terms of phones. It used to be like every 2 years. Now it used to be every year. Now it's every 9 months. Okay. Same thing with computer chips. All right. New platform comes out every year, every 2 years. Now it comes out every year. Okay. So, what has been disclosed by the military are weapons which interact with our living energetic systems, living systems which are responsible for sustaining our lives and mental processes. These new weapons are unlike anything ever contemplated by mankind. These are weapon systems which pierce the very integrity of the human being. In these pages, over 280 source documents trace the evolution and use of some of these advances. I am sure that what I found in the open literature represents a very small part of what has been developed. I am hopeful that this text will be revised from time to time to include additional details as the information is collected through the Lay Institute efforts. On the surface, it is easy to see why some people would desire to subdue rather than kill using the new systems being developed and deployed by the military today. On the surface, it seemed that some minor violation of civil rights might be overlooked in favor of maintaining existing social order. On the surface, it might even seem desirable to some people that controlling the behavior of others in order to achieve political ends is acceptable. The ethical line has not been drawn in terms of the use of these new technologies. The reason this line has not been clearly drawn is because science is advancing at ever accelerating rates, while the proper ethical discussion is lost in the march by militaries in their new revolution. I am suggesting looking back towards those traditional values from which all of the world cultures and societies have emerged. I propose a revolution which will awaken each of us to the reality of our shared value and hope for future generations through education and responsible action. I suggest a revolution that is focused in peace, which holds the individual human as a central actor in achieving that peace and stand firmly against violation of the rule of law and individual human dignity. Now, if you find out that you and members of your family have been targeted, these weapons have been used on to manipulate them and yourself and others, would you want peace? Or would you want to remove the individuals who are responsible for this human atrocity from ever doing it to anybody else again? That's a question you have to ask yourself. I know what I would do. Okay? I'm not going to share it right now, but I think you guys know. So, the issue uncovered in the research of new technologies are frightening in their implication. We have uncovered over 40 United States patents dealing with the control and manipulation of the mental and emotional states of humans. We have culled from thousands of governments, academic, and major media reports the evidence of these new technologies in terms of their potential effects on us. We trace the root of this research back to the early 1950s, when major initiatives began to be made by the military to control human behavior. Okay? Now, what happened before the 1950s? What did the U.S. government and the military did? What they did was brought in thousands of Nazi scientists, psychiatrists, psychologists, neurologists, mechanics, electrical engineers, okay, computer engineers to the United States. And soon after, what happened? We start to see programs such as MK Ultra that delve into trying to control and manipulate the human mind. Okay? Keep saying you got to know who run these agencies and the ideology. And remember, it's not Nazi ideology. It's American eugenics ideology that the Nazis co-opted. Okay? So, the early attempt used chemical and hallucinogenics to achieve some measure of control. Then, in the early 1960s, the interest changed to non-chemical means by affecting behavior. By the early 1970s, within certain military and academic circles, it became clear that human behavior could be modified by the use of subtle, energetic manipulations. By 2006, the state of the technology had been perfected to the point where emotion, thoughts, memory, and thinking could be manipulated by external means. Stop for a moment and consider the impact of what this means. The idea that human thinking can be disrupted or manipulated in a way that can't be resisted. Listen to this, okay? The idea that the human thinking can be disrupted or manipulated in a way that can't be resisted. The ability to impact thinking in this way comes through, according to a leading Russian scientist, Dr. Igor Smirnov, as if it were a commandment from God. It cannot be resisted. Think about this for a moment. What else could be a greater violation of our own individual personhood? These new systems do not pierce the tissue. They violate the very essence of who we are. They violate the internal and private aspects of who we are as individuals. The idea that some external force can now disrupt not only our emotional state, but our health as well, should not come as a great surprise. What is surprising is the volume of evidence now available to us that documents that these technologies are here now. One of the most revealing sources we found regarding these new technologies was produced by the Scientific Advisory Board of the Air Force. The Air Force initiated a significant study. Okay, as I was reading, the Air Force initiated a, where are we at here? Okay, that's what happened. Okay, so the Air Force initiated a significant studies to look forward into this century and see what was possible for new weapons. One of those forecasts shockingly revealed the following. One can envision the development of electromagnetic energy sources, the output of which can be pulsed, shaped, and focused, and can be coupled with the human body in a fashion that will allow one to prevent voluntary muscular movements, control emotions and thus actions, produce sleep, transmit suggestion, interfere with both short-term and long-term memory, produce an experience set, and delete an experience set. Contemplate this for a moment. A system that can manipulate emotions, control behavior, put you to sleep, create false memories, and wipe all memories clean. Realizing this was supposed to be a forecast should not cause one to believe that it is not a current issue. These systems are far from speculative. In fact, a great deal of work has already been done in this area with many systems already in existence. Okay, now here what he says, with many systems already in existence. The paper went on to say it would also appear possible to create high fidelity speech in the human body, raising the possibility of covert suggestion and psychological direction. When a high power microwave pulse in the gigahertz range strikes the human body, a very small temperature uh, perturbation occurs. This is associated with a sudden expansion of the slightly heated tissue. This expansion is fast enough to produce an acoustic wave. If a pulse stream is used, it is possible to create an internal acoustic field in the 5 to 15 kilohertz range, which is audible. Thus, it may be possible to talk to selective adversaries in a fashion that would be most disturbing to them. It is possible to talk to a person remotely by projecting a voice into his head. The author suggests that this would be disturbing to the victim. What an understatement. It would be pure terror. A weapon which could intrude into the brain of an individual represents a gross invasion of one's private life. The idea that these new systems will be perfected in the next several years could be cause for significant discussion and debate. Okay, there's a part here that says the mind has no firewall. In another article published in the spring 1998 edition of Parameters, U.S. Army War College Quarterly, by an article by Timothy L. Thomas appeared, The Mind Has No Firewall. The article was perhaps the most revealing in terms of what can be expected in the future. For decades, the United States, the former Soviet Union, and others have been involved in developing sophisticated new systems for influencing human physical and mental health. The desire and focus of this research has been to discover ways of manipulating the behavior of humans to meet political ends in the context of war making and defense. What is interesting, and as I said, war. Okay, now I don't know if it's the siren or the car honking, but it was one of them. Okay, so I'm gonna do both. Okay, um, so what is interesting in all of this is the sophistication of external devices which can alter our very nature. In the article, The Mind Has No Firewall, the author states, a recent Russian military article offered a slightly different slant to the problem, declaring that humanity stands on the brink of a psychotronic war with mind and body as the focus. That article discussed Russian and international attempt to control the psychophysical condition of man and his decision-making process by the use of VHF generators, noiseless cassettes, and other technologies. The article goes on to describe that the aim of these weapons is to control or alter the psyche or interfere with the various parts of the body in such a way as to confuse or destroy the inner body signal that keeps the living system operational. The article describes the way information warfare theology neglects the most important factor of information warfare, the human being. Military publicly focus on hardware and software, neglecting the human data processing. In the information warfare theories put forth in the past, discussion was limited to man-made systems and not the human operator. Humans are considered in information warfare scenarios only in that they could be impacted by propaganda, deceit, and deception. Tools recognized as part of the military mindset and arsenal. However, there is a more sinister approach, an approach which must be considered in the context of human rights and value, which are fundamentally and foundationally based on our rights to think freely, the article went on. Yet, the body is capable not only of being deceived, manipulated, or misinformed, but also shut down or destroyed, just as any other data processing system. The data the body receives from external sources, such as okay, such as okay, yet the body is capable not only of being deceived, manipulated, or misinformed, but also shut down or destroyed, just as any other data processing system. The data the body receives from external sources, such as electromagnetic, vortex, or acoustic energy waves, are created through its own electrical or chemical stimuli, can be manipulated or changed, just as the data information in any hardware system can be altered. Now, let me say this. Early on in my targeting, what I used to experience was a vibration in the lower half of my body. Okay. At the time, when your cell phone just came out where it was affordable for everybody, for most people, we used to, have our phone cases on our belt, on our hips, phone on vibrate, and would ring. There are many times when my hips would vibrate and I would grab my hips, even though my phone was not on me, thinking that my phone was on me because it's a very strong vibration. Okay, and I talk about this. Then I came upon an article, again, I think it was Dr. Richard Miller, that talks about vibrational acoustic energy weapons. Okay, and then I knew that was what they were using. All right. Also, when the NYPD was rolling out the new sirens, I was one of those non-consensual human experimentation victim, a tester per se. So there are times I would come home from work, walking on my block, there would be nobody outside, no one. Okay, a police cruiser would drive by, and they will turn on the siren, and it was not like the regular siren, but all of a sudden the what's the word here, like I just felt excuse me, my nervous system was, like I just felt like this deep fear, right? And it was momentarily now. Okay, because once the sirens went off, I didn't feel it. So, and I started talking about it. You see, there's a reason why they got rid of a lot of our recordings on TalkShoe. Okay, and it was because, again, we were talking about these things. Okay, years before these things were happening. I mean, before the public knew about these things, right? So this is what they'll do. Okay, when they go dark, try to delete information off the internet. Okay, so where was I now? Okay, so the aim of any information war ultimately deals with human beings. The policy of the United States is to target all information-dependent systems, whether human or automated, and the definition extends the use of these new technologies to people as if they were just data processing hardware. So I am going to stop reading here, and I'm going to go on to the next book, which is Guinea Pigs Technology for Control, Dr. John Hall. Okay? And I'm gonna read a couple paragraphs from this one. Excuse me, I gotta, clear my throat. We know from multiple studies that chronic exposure to radio frequency can cause cognitive decline, premature aging, cataracts, decreased sperm counts, and tissue damage. These efforts are thought to be secondary to decreased melatonin levels, increased heat shock proteins, and increased levels of ornithine decarbon decarboxylase ODC. Increased ODC levels are the most concerning due to its tumor stimulating effect, and these levels may vary dependent on how the signal is modulated. Melatonin has many functions in the human body other than sleep reduction, as most people are familiar with. Melatonin has a very powerful antioxidant effects in the human body, and chronic exposure to electromagnetic fields decrease its ability to function. Heat shock proteins are present in normal cells but increase with electromagnetic field exposure through non-thermal effect. These proteins serve as chaperone to other proteins and aid them in transport through cellular compartments. They also help in scavenging protein that have been unfolded improperly or had their structure altered, which may render them fatal to the cell in which they reside. It appears that the chronic exposure to electromagnetic fields cause increased free radicals production, which in turn probably cause a cascade of other cellular change that are seen as detrimental to the human body. Therapy with potent free radical scavengers does not seem to mitigate some of the physical effort of chronic exposure. If one were to find himself under chronic exposure, a combination of alpha lipoic acid, 600 milligrams a day, vitamin D3, 2000 IU a day, sublingual glutathione, 50 milligrams a day, and melatonin would be a great benefit in preventing the drastic effect and increasing free radicals in the body. Okay, so now I'm gonna highlight this because I definitely going to look into this before I get these items. Okay, you got to do your due diligence in terms of, when you get information, that if you're going to take anything, that you research it. Okay. All right, so many victims contact me and other organizations that dealt with electronic harassment, searching for shielding recommendations. In 2012, ICAACE, the International Center Against Abuse of COVID Technology, was allowed use of a Faraday cage in Belgium to conduct testing, which includes RF scanning of known targeted individuals and unaffected individuals as a control group. The testing was recorded on video and was reported, and a report was generated, which can be found on the ICAA Act website. The Faraday cage was certified in December of 2011 and rated to be effective between 9 kilohertz and 18 gigahertz. The result was significant. The group of individuals who are known victims tested positive for RF transmission within the cage, while the unaffected control group showed no transmission emanating from their body. Moreover, the positive group did report a subjective increase in their sense of well-being within the cage, with a relative absence of effect they that they had previously complained about. Although this is only one experiment with a small population, I believe it does anecdotally lead ones to believe that a well constructed research level Faraday cage does offer some protection from exposure. And do you know how expensive these materials are? Okay. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? While it may be feasible for one to live their life within a Faraday cage, perhaps a smaller cage could be constructed with similar parameters for in-home nocturnal use to combat sleep deprivation, which is common among all victims. So again, you see, this is why I document in my experience so that people can understand that when we talk about this stuff, the stuff is written about, we are experiencing this stuff, sleep deprivation, because being hit with radio wave and microwave frequency. And one of the effects of that is, you suffer from insomnia. Okay. So uh, just wanted to do this because, again, I don't get to use this, um, do the videos the way that I want to do it, just like this. Um, so, I should be sleeping because, though my sleep habits have been a little better, I've been more focused in trying to concentrate and falling asleep. But sometimes I'm up, I play Fortnite. It's the only thing I can really focus on. It helps my memory somewhat by remembering where certain things are. Reading, I still cannot read for too long. I've read for the most I think I've read so far is about probably 15 minutes or so, and I subconsciously I can't get into reading any longer because of the trauma, of the headaches. They were so intense and so painful that I'm still trying to get over that, because the idea that if I get better at reading for longer periods, that they will again start with the remote monitoring, and then I'll start to get the headaches again. Okay. And just to say how traumatizing that was for me. Okay. That I literally dropped out of school. I didn't go back to any of the classes. So, anyhow, I will speak to you guys on the next Target Individual program, the next Target Individual experience. Okay. And I hope this video is informative. Please do share it if you're a TI. And I know the use of fear has been used to keep TIs away from these videos. Okay. I mean, if you feel that you're being targeted to these videos, then don't look at it. Okay. I'll be the first to tell you, do not look at it until you done enough research to where you can watch the video and not be psychologically affected by it in a negative way, in a great capacity. Okay. All right. Talk to you guys next video.